The geopolitical picture, as you just said earlier, is changing, and especially with what's happening in Afghanistan, or what's not happening in Afghanistan. The Biden administration has been calling for the creation of an inclusive government there since August. That's not happening. It hasn't happened yet. And Uzbeks realize that. But Uzbekistan seems to be the Taliban's closest friend now. Does that bother you? Because the Biden administration hasn't really announced its strategy on how to deal with the Taliban. The Washington seems to be still thinking and strategizing and brainstorming, and I believe that the recent conversations with the Uzbek delegation in Washington also included that conversation, like what are we going to do together? What can we do together?
Right.
I guess the second part of my question would be, to what extent are you in sync with what Tashkent wants to do, what Tashkent wants you to do?
Yeah, well, first of all, I'll say that the government of Uzbekistan has been extremely collaborative and communicative, has communicated a lot with us about its Afghanistan policy. I believe trying really hard to be part of an international consensus about what to do with respect to the Taliban government. So I think you correctly said that Uzbekistan is maybe one of the more forward-leaning countries in the world in terms of developing a relationship with the new government, not having formally recognized them still,
yes,
but having had lots of visits and signing agreements related to energy supply and actively pursuing projects like this, the idea of building a railroad line that would connect to Pakistan and so on. So they've been very forward-leaning, very proactive on that, but at the same time, very careful, I think, to be part of this international consensus that says the Taliban government needs to do certain things first before they will become legitimate in the eyes of the world and could get recognition. Including, I mean, you mentioned the inclusive government. There's some debate about exactly what that means, how you define inclusive, but it's clear that the current government doesn't meet any of the definitions people are putting out there. There's also the issue of them not allowing terrorist groups to operate or expand on their territory. From an American point of view, this is fundamental. Obviously, our whole involvement in Afghanistan, really since 2001, has been about that issue at the most basic level. And then, of course, there's issues related to human rights, and especially the rights of women and girls. We just saw this past week a somewhat disturbing development, which was that the school for girls above the elementary grades was scheduled to reopen, and then on the same day it was closed again.
Right.
And there's no date for when it will be reopened. But the point is that on all of these issues, these kind of conditions that the international community has set, Uzbekistan has been firm in saying that they support those conditions and that they want to be part of the international consensus. So I think that's important. I also think that there are ways that we are and can in the future cooperate with Uzbekistan to the benefit of the region and to stability in the region. This has been true since before all the changes that happened last summer and the new government coming in, especially with regard to cooperation and counterterrorism. Going back to what I said earlier, we are very concerned that there not be a fertile ground on the soil of Afghanistan for the growth of terrorist groups. Terrorist groups operate there now. There's some evidence that they've been growing in number and ability to operate since the change of government last summer. I should say the overthrow of the government. Maybe change of government is a little too much of a euphemism. But the point is that that concern about the threat of terrorism is one we share very, very deeply with the Uzbeks and actually with the whole region of Central Asia. And so finding ways of cooperating to meet that threat, both to know what's happening in Afghanistan and to be able to combat it, is something we care very much about. It's a common concern of the two countries.
As we watch how close is Tashkent with the interim government in Kabul now, it's very easy to think or expect that Uzbekistan is about to recognize the government there, right? The Taliban government. But we've had conversations, and President Mirziyoyev's special assistant on Afghanistan, Ismatullah Ergashev, told us that no, we're not going to recognize Taliban individually. He did not say we're not going to. He says if we are to recognize the Taliban government, it will have to be a consensus, as you just said.
Yes.
It needs to be a regional consensus. It needs to be a consensus with our strategic partners, including the United States. And the question is, like, how possible is that? How far or how close is Washington to that?
On that question, I'm not going to be able to give you a very comprehensive answer, I'm afraid, because I'm not involved in the day-to-day workings of our Afghanistan policy. So I can't say how close or how far. I guess what I will say simply is that we do have some specific issues and conditions that we've been clear on with the Taliban government, and those have not been fulfilled yet.
There have been many conversations and discussions in Washington, in the think tanks. Those discussions include the members of the State Department, South and Central Asia Bureau, and others, including the White House, National Security Council, the Pentagon, and all the relevant agencies, discussing whether the Biden administration should update the Central Asia strategy, or is it time to update the Central Asia strategy now that America is fully out of Afghanistan, and what it will take now to convince the region that America still cares about Central Asia post-Afghanistan, because as we all know, Afghanistan was a priority in these relationships, and Afghanistan played a huge role in the political ties, in the political partnerships. So how do you explain to the Uzbek people, let's say, that America is still very much committed to all the priorities and, promises that you've made over the years with this country?
Well, frankly, the best way to convince or to, I suppose, convince is the best word, the people of Uzbekistan that we mean those things is to show results, to do tangible things that show that. And I think if I can point to way more things than we have time for in this interview that we've done over just the 3 years I've been here that I think prove that. I'll just take a couple of very concrete examples. We are deeply committed to supporting the reforms that President Mirziyoyev started 5 years ago that will improve the country's ability to generate economic growth and provide for its citizens, including, for example, in the education sector, where we are working hand in hand with the Ministry of Public Education to improve the textbooks, the curriculum, especially with respect to IT and English language. And we have done a lot of very tangible things that have improved conditions in the classroom and the teaching skills of teachers to be able to raise students up. It's hard work, and it doesn't get a lot of attention. It's not glamorous work, but our partners in the ministry and in the government can see that we are committed to improving the lives and the welfare of citizens of Uzbekistan. So, in another field, another completely different area, in agriculture, we've been investing for many years, but especially in the last few years, in diversifying the crops that Uzbek farmers grow and helping them find markets, export markets. In the long run, this has benefited and is benefiting Uzbekistan citizens, putting money in their pocket, helping them create businesses and grow them. And this is something that we have done because we care about the future of this country. So again, I can make an unlimited number of statements, general statements about, we support Uzbekistan sovereignty and independence, we want a prosperous Uzbekistan, but none of that will convince anyone that I mean it. It's more than pointing to very concrete things that we have done and continue to do to benefit this country in a very tangible way.